G'day and welcome to the Hunter's Campfire podcast. My name's Mark and along with good mate Ian, we're here to help with all things hunting. If you're looking to start but don't know where to begin, you want to make the most of your next trip away or even plan that hunt of a lifetime, we've got something for you. You'll find our podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon and plenty of others. And if you want more, head over to our YouTube channel, The Hunter's Campfire, where we have plenty of how-to and hunting videos along with the full video production of every podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good hunting.
Your phone's listening.
My phone is listening.
And so is everyone else.
That's right. And what's that? My name's Fraser Crane. I'm listening.
Good evening, gents. How are you going this evening?
Good job.
Very well, sir. Thank you very much. How is yourself?
Not too bad, thank you. Apologies for not being on the last week's podcast.
The rumour is that you were caught in the wire.
I was caught cutting the wire. Is probably what you wanted to say.
No, in the wire, like halfway through it. I'm caught. That's right. Cut in. That was
There
fun,
was that rumour did float around for the podcast.
How are you going in?
Yeah, I'm good.
Did it? Really?
Yeah. I've got delays again. I can't have delays again. That's not fair.
We did.
I will get over.
We did start that rumour. So while he's delaying, did everyone get one of these?
Yes, I got one of them
Cool,
from my friends at Zolia.
Got a Christmas card from the lovely people at Zolia. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Nothing for
Ian
me.
didn't get one by the looks of it.
Well, I don't know. He's frozen in time.
Drivers drive that fast from Melbourne, so must have gone by air. Had to have. So thank you.
But still
moved.
He has moved. Yes.
I'm no longer. I'm on my work.
No. What I mean is on the screen you've moved.
Oh,
Jono's usually on that side.
that's true.
And you're usually on that side.
Can't you rearrange
I'm
your
on
own?
this. Well, no,
Space.
that's what it usually pops up with. It seems it follows the same pattern every time. You're on a different computer. You're in a different position.
strange.
It's very weird.
Anyway, if you're still watching us, we'll probably this might be the third intro you've seen tonight, which is a bit bizarre. I've had the usual tech problems of country internet. Anywho, we're here. Hi guys.
You want to live out in the sticks?
I do. I really do.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I already said this because I don't know where we're at, but we got a Christmas card from
yes,
Zolia today.
Well,
So-
Mark, you and I got
That's
Christmas cards from Zolia. The important ones did,
Ooh.
and those ones without good internet.
If you hold for 3 minutes, I'll run out to the mailbox and see if I can.
If you like, me and John can talk amongst ourselves.
It'd be a bit embarrassing if I can get one.
You got an Alton Goods.
It's got a little fire in it. Look
It's an
at you
ultimate
guys.
goods. That's it. Well, that's exactly right. Exactly right. That's
That's
what it
what
is.
you're
It's a
telling
little
me.
fire.
Yeah, well, for
pretty-
those that are listening
That's
along,
pretty cool.
we've got a little Elton Goods little fire box, I guess you'd call it, and Mark's stuffed it full of pretend
They
candles
call
that are flashing like
They
fire.
call it they call it a twig firebox or something like that. Basically, it's a little cooker, so you can you can put a little pot on top of it. The idea is you burn twigs and sticks in it. It's very small.
For beekeeping.
It's titanium, though. Titanium, I don't think it's made out of ex-Russian subs. I don't know what kind of titanium it is, but it's titanium, and it's a flat
Super
pack. So it all comes apart. It fits into literally a flat pack.
Wow.
So I just went, yeah, that's a trinket that I could have. It's really noisy though. That's the trouble. So if you're hunting, I would, be mindful about setting it up before you get ready because there's lots of crinkling and crinkling and metal and metal sounds. But
once you've shot the deer and you want to cook it backstrap
that's right.
on something,
yeah, that
enjoy
might
the
be
moment.
you might be like, yeah, I think you might be there.
What are those like Japanese grills that you get
Yeah.
where you like where you sear a little piece of meat on the grill?
I think
I've
it's
always
like
wanted to do
so. One of the reasons I got it was I was reading about it, and the guy said he uses it like as a little, a heater when he's, and I thought, you know what, if I'm out with a boy and we're down at Nundle or somewhere like that and it's winter, wouldn't be bad. Pull that out of the pack in the afternoon when you're sitting there and it's bloody freezing cold. And
that's if you can find anything dry to burn.
Well, it burns all twigs, and I just take a little firelighter with me and put it in there, and it goes. And you can see it's reflecting off my glasses at the moment.
In a tube.
Well, yeah, maybe
bottle
off a very small bike. But there it is.
I like the effort you've gone to for your Christmas lights and your Elton Goods. Makes it look
very festive.
Yeah, can you
very festive.
Yeah. Well, we can play the How Long Will Those Lights Last game again.
No, those things actually no. Well, they're 2 years old. Those lights, so they do last a long time. Though admittedly, they don't get turned on all that often. But those little Christmas candles some years ago.
That's not an O light, is it?
No, it's not an O light. So I do have one of those. Right
here we go. Oh, good.
Well,
I do have one of those.
No,
it is good stuff.
Yeah, on the trip over the weekend, one of the fellas had.
I'm not quite there with them yet. I'm not 100% sold. No.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story. I had.
How come?
I had the Elton Goods insulated mattress. In fact, I think I'd spoken about this on a previous podcast. I went to Seville. It was in winter. I went by myself. I backpack hiked in. I blew up my mattress. It went down. I blew it up. It went down. It was like had a hole in it, and I had 3 very cold nights on the ground. The good thing about the Elton Goods team is I rang them and told them about my woes, and they sent me a new one and asked me to hack the other one into pieces. So I now have tried to re-sew the thing back together after hacking it apart to make a cushion, but apparently my sewing is not airtight, and I failed miserably, so the whole thing's in the bin. But other than that, I then took the replacement one up to the territory, and we slept on that gravel pad, Jono, and we moved the tents away from the lagoon. So we're on a bit of a gravel pad, so it was a pretty rough place. It was fine. It lasted. It was good. And I've got, what have I got of theirs? I've also got their ultralight tent set up, their bug net set up, the ground tarp that's got little pop-up sides so that it won't get water coming in if it rains.
Yeah, the up sides.
I really like their bivvy, but it's expensive. So I'm probably not going to get the bivvy.
Scarily expensive.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it compared to
that's that new one they brought out, isn't it?
Yeah, the little cocoon bivvy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've got the top, but I haven't actually used it.
The top's great. I love the top.
I think I'm going to sleep under that at the territory.
Are you?
I'm going to take that to the territory next year, and then I'm going to set my but I'm not going to sleep under that because of the crocs and the bug. But I'm going to set my tent underneath.
So you're going to give the crocs a nice shady area where they can wait for you.
It's wrapped in the tent.
But I'm going to put my tent under the top because surprisingly we did have a bit of dew in the territory.
We did.
I don't know how, but
and we were sleeping with
so you're going to use your inner fly and then have it.
Correct. And then I can store my stuff under that because all I had was the tent and we didn't put the covers on the tent because it was so freaking hot.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of dew. So I'm going to put the
I actually did the normal tent thing in the territory.
Yeah. I was just too hot. I needed the airflow.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to put the top. I'm going to put the top up and then put my tent underneath.
Not a bad idea. I'll play around with that one because I'll be taking. Well, I'm going to take my 2-man or 3, technically my 3-man tent this next time. I had the 1-man, and that was the little hot box coffin type of, hungy, burning in there, sweating like a demon.
It'd be more humid if we're going 2 weeks later as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did.
But then again,
they did say the build-up came early last year.
So you don't know. As long as it's not raining, as long as we miss the wet, that's the most important thing.
Yep, agreed.
So
funny news item.
There was it. Say again?
I said Fitbit we talked about in the pre-chat as a funny thing that's going on.
Oh yeah.
What was that, Jono? They've been sued again.
They have been sued. The ACCC are not happy with Fitbit for what, Mark? Misleading customers?
Yeah, something about there was something around if you didn't return it you got to basically they're saying if you don't, if there's something wrong, you got to return it within a certain time frame. And it would appear that Fitbit was not being wholly honest in that time frame. So they were discounting people's warranty claims or something like that, which sounds really weird. But the fine was for $11 million.
And 58. What was it? 58.
What was it? 20? What was in the 20? I thought you said 27.
Well, just let me check.
I thought it was it was 11 million for 58 people at an average of $189,655.
That's a ridiculous fine. I mean, surely there are other people caught up in it.
It was it was $11 million bucks, and it was the federal court issued the penalty against a US firm on Tuesday after it admitted making false, misleading, or deceptive claims to 58 customers between 2020 and 2020. So
that's $189,655 per person.
And remember, that's only like that's what 29 people a year. No, actually less than that because 2020 to 2022. In several cases, Fitbit representatives claim customers only had 45 days to return a faulty device. Obviously, that's not the case. And the weird thing, it's the second case brought against them. They had a warranty issue back in 2018. There you go. Kooky.
Well, Fitbit's still a thing.
I don't know. I completely missed the wave of excitement around Fitbit. I must have been looking the other direction. It passed me by. So there is that is weird. So
in other words, don't mislead customers.
Don't mislead customers. So that's an interesting segue because someone's reached out to us and we actually didn't mislead them. We gave them some information and they were very, very complimentary in getting back to us. But what they did ask, and it was a guy by the name of Ibrahim, asked about, what kind of deer he should shoot in regards, and after listening to some podcasts. And it was an interesting, so Ian and I and Ibrahim had an online conversation about it. And it really stimulated, a few of the ideas around, especially public land hunting, because this guy is going to hunt public land, and about, the ethics of taking an animal. And we've spoken about that briefly in the past, or maybe not briefly, we've spoken about it past, but I think he made some interesting points. And one of the things was he was almost too worried to shoot a deer because he'd been told, don't shoot, only shoot mature stags and things like that. So, he's kind of going, holy moly, how do I, if I don't see a mature stag? And Ian made a really good point about when you're shooting state forests, if you're going to be only shooting mature stags, then you're going to be saving a lot of money on ammo because there's a very good chance that you might never ever see a mature stag. Ibrahim made a comment or made reference to a comment I made before, which I believe that if you're hunting public land and you're a newbie and you see a deer, by all means take it, because that's the only way you build knowledge, skill, and confidence to make those kind of decisions about big stags later on down the journey of your hunting. You got to start somewhere. You can't not start by saying, I can't shoot this or I can't shoot that. And obviously we're talking within the legalities of shooting things, in an ethical manner. But in terms of the animal itself, I see no reason that a guy starting out, or anyone in fact, doesn't. If you want to shoot for meat, then shoot for meat, and don't worry about things like that. I can't see that as an ethical problem. I think it's and Peter Ryan once said to me, because I had a similar conversation with after a post I made years ago, people were saying, you shouldn't have shot that deer because of potential. And I remember Peter Ryan said, potential dinner. I really like that one. And you were making a comment in about some red deer that you saw.
Yeah, and
if I remember correctly.
we'll cover some of that shortly. But I think the comment that I made was, like, if you're new, that's what you're saying a second ago. If you're new and you come across a deer, probably the only animal that I would be hesitant shooting on a meat hunt is, one that's got a young fawn with it that's reliant on the mother. So if you can identify at 150 meters that that's a mature stag, that's not stag, a mature hind or doe that's lactating, you're probably not a new hunter. So a new hunter's not going to know that. They may know that they should try and look for it, but they're probably not going to be able to understand the size difference and maturity features and things like that. And I would be, you've got to do everything necessary to follow up on that fawn if you realise that you've done that. So I would try not to chase that specific animal at that specific time of the year. And we're talking November, December, January. After that young fawn is likely to be self-sufficient. Sure, it's going to still be small. It's probably going to get taken out by a dog. It's not going to starve to death, I don't think, after it's 3 to 4 months old. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I know certainly you can wean lambs really young if you need to. They may not get the same nourishment, but they're not going to starve to death a horrible death. So you should steer away from that. But if you walk upon a stag that's in velvet, soft velvet. A lot of people say don't shoot them in velvet. Leave them until they're proper trophies. That at least hard velvet where you can inject
hard antler.
Hard antler. Sorry, where you can inject the the chemical in it to keep the that last stage of velvet, or at least antler like we do in the raw. People say don't shoot them in velvet, but it's still meat, and it's still public land, and it's still a deer, and that's your purpose. Now, if you've never seen a deer before, and it walks in front of you, it could be the only deer you see in 3 trips. So I don't think that you should hold back on that if that is your purpose for the hunt, to take your first deer. You don't need to be selective. If you've shot 5, 6, 7, 10 deer in your life, or you've got a full freezer already, yeah, be selective for sure. But I don't think new hunters need to be that concerned about it. I think they should take their opportunities when they're presented.
I think one of the problems is with so many things, it kind of goes to the boundaries of reason. That if you don't shoot that because it's going to, potentially going to be this, or it's going to potentially be that. But the trouble is with that whole argument is ultimately you're not participating. You're just looking.
Yep.
So you can't expect that person then what you can't do is you can't say to someone, don't shoot this deer, or don't shoot that deer, and then expect them to be an experienced hunter. Because what you're saying, you're limiting their opportunities to gain experience. And I think that's really important. So, taking that deer, and not just the first deer, but for a couple of years, taking deer is really, really important for your development as a hunter. You've got to do it. You can't just kind of look at pictures at this stuff. You've got to do it. And I don't like taking deer in velvet. I just don't like it. But that's just me in that sense. And like he asked, what's the best animal to take from a meat point of view? Well, that's an interesting question as well, because a lot of theory, and I actually like the theory, is that probably the best meat animal is a young spiker. And the reason why he's a young spiker is, one, he's young. How do you know he's young? Because the antlers tell you that he's young. 2, a male is, in terms of meat on the hoof, males are always better than females.
Bigger.
Well, generally, they're a bigger animal. So you shoot that one, you get more. You get more meat. So, you from a meat point of view, shooting a young spiker means you get a young animal, so the meat quality is going to be better. You get a bigger animal because males are generally bigger than females. There's obviously differences. We're talking about a yearling male and a full-grown mature, hind or doe. Obviously, there's differences there, but generally the males are bigger. So, and it's not going to likely, and at this time of year, it's not going to be carrying anything, unless, of course, it identifies as a doe.
It's female.
Do you think?
So there's that.
do you think that the meat quality is better, worse, or the same between the same age of animal, male or female, a yearling male versus yearling female? I think you said
Okay.
the meat quality is better? Is that? I don't know if I heard you right or not. I'm curious what your thoughts were.
I don't know if the meat quality is better, but more
Certainly.
to me, the quality was more about age rather than sex.
Sure.
I think you can pretty much guarantee the age of a spiker.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. With the spiker, you can look at a spiker and go, "Oh, I know how that deer is." So from a new hunter point of view, you see a spiker, you immediately know, okay, that deer is in a certain age range. You could see a hind or a doe, and unless you get a good look at it and you understand about aging a deer, you might go, is that a 2-year-old deer or is that a 5-year-old deer? I don't know. But with the spiker, it kind of eliminates the guesswork. It goes, this is how old I am. Look at these things.
Yeah, but I think if you've got a hind and a stag or a buck at the same age, I don't think you could really discern between quality. Quantity, yes, but not quality.
No. So the quality would be associated just with the age of the animal rather than the gender of the animal. Though I reckon that nannies are better than billies again. So a younger nanny is, I think, a better eater than a younger billy, and that's only just, I think so.
Well, I would agree on that.
I can't give you the scientific reason why, but I just have found that they're a better meat animals.
For me, I find with the billies, and it doesn't matter if it's a really big billy or a younger billy, it's more around, for me, the smell that comes off the animal. Because, for instance, on the slam, I shot a young billy, and he was a youngster, small billy, but he was having a good sniff around the nannies, and he had pissed all over himself, and he had stunk, and that just saturates for me the smell of the meat. Although it doesn't come in direct contact with the meat, for me it taints it. I just get the smell of billy, where Rohan shot a nice nanny that was there, no smell whatsoever, and for me it just smelled like a better quality animal. So I would actually agree with that.
Yeah. So I've just found that.
Sorry, Mark. Go.
And look, I mean, it is really difficult. So, like, for instance, when I was in England and we were pigeon shooting, obviously if you're a pigeon expert, you can tell the difference between a house pigeon and stuff like that. But to me, basically, they're what we call a pigeon, And we shot a heap of them, and we breasted them all, and there was a significant difference between those breasts of birds. We breasted them and I cooked them, so I didn't take notice at the time which one came from what, but you could tell that there was a significant difference in what were very similar to me anyway, very similar looking animals, type of bird, very similar size and all that based. And texture and a whole lot. So there is obviously differences, but there's no way I could say, oh, that one's going to taste good and that one isn't. So,
when it comes to deer, there is certainly a difference in the quality of the meat. So I hunted the Mary Valley a few years ago, and I shot a really old hind, and with that hind was I think it was a yearling, and I shot that the hind was this dark red, really, really rich meat, and the yearling was actually this very, very light colored meat, so you can certainly tell the difference in the meat. So between a young animal and an old animal on a deer, there's a very, very big difference in meat quality, and the taste was different, the smell was different, everything was different. Still tasty, but very, very different.
What do you think?
Same with the lamb, hogget, and mutton. The flavor gets stronger, it gets richer.
As it gets older, it gets darker, it gets richer.
Yeah, that's right. And that just comes down to the type of meat you like. But I also think there's another interesting side subject to this, and can't remember which one of the fellas on the weekend brought the subject up, but I've thought about it for quite some time. And that was, even though I've been brought up eating game meats, Dad used to shoot, uncles used to shoot, so I was used to being oh, what's this? Oh, that's venison. Or what's this? It's something else. And that was okay. When I first started to hunt and shoot my own animals, it took me quite a while to be able to eat it. And I thought, oh, it was just my brain at work here. And it was because I associated the smell of gutting the animal, the warmth of the smell and all of that sort of stuff. I associated that with the meat for quite some time after taking 4, 5, 6 animals. And it was the same, and I got used to it. After time, it was fine. I got used to it. And, you know, it doesn't impact me at all anymore. But I shot it. Last year, I shot a couple of hares on the property. And the warm, rich smell of that hare when I gutted it was a smell I couldn't get out of my brain when I went to eat it. And I was sort of like a bit funny about eating it. It was a bit weird. One of the guys on the weekend raised the same thing. They said that they had this association with smell going with the meat that they were trying to cook after they took it home. Now, I don't know if you guys have experienced that at all. Certainly something that I did in the early days. But bringing it back to which animals should you shoot, you know, if those are mental things that people have beyond me and my couple of experiences, taking an animal that potentially isn't that stinky billy that smells like piss so that you don't want to touch it, it's worth considering what you're starting with to a point so that it's easier on the palate, I guess, when you eat it, or easier to associate it with a more pleasant smell and experience. So anyway, just something I thought I'd mention.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, certainly I've known a number of people over the years who have been uncomfortable with the butchering process, and I always thought it was because of that, you know, that smell and the fact that thing's, you know, hot when you're touching it, and that might very well be, you know, a driving factor. From one thing that I've been thinking about since that conversation with Ibrahim is it's also interesting how we talk when we talk about these questions of ethics. We're talking about deer.
Yeah,
we don't apply them to other animals. We don't apply this to pigs. You know, stack them, whack them, blast them. You know. So it's really strange, or not strange, but it's interesting how we apply this idea of, you know, potential and all these things to deer, but we don't apply them to other animals. And I know that there's deer are a game animal, as it were, and pigs are just pests. Well, that's only here, you know. There's other places in the world where they value a boar, you know, as much, if not more, than a deer. You know, for them,
in Europe,
it's the opposite. You know, deer. You know, there's lots of deer here, but you know, you might chance a big boar. You know, and how exciting that is. So it's quite interesting. And I mean, and then you get, you know, all the various types of goats that people hunt all over the world. Even, you know, what we call feral goats. You know, they have a different approach of how to hunt them, and as opposed to, you know, is the you know, the standard practice of just, you know, bashing them and that's it. They're just goats. So I think that's worth considering too. What are the boundaries of your ethics? Why do they apply to deer but maybe not pigs and maybe not goats?
Yeah, well, I rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly, you know, I've often said that goats are a great training animal. You know, they're a great animal to go and learn how to hunt with. You know, before you unleash yourself on deer, you know, learn to hunt with goats because they're just goats. The boundaries don't change in terms of, you know, treating the animal and trying to, you know, dispatch it quickly and all of those sorts of things. I don't think that changes for me personally anyway between a pig and a goat and a deer. But I certainly treat deer with a higher value animal than pigs and goats. Just, I don't know, maybe there's something royal about them. They're the pinnacle.
But everyone's different on that.
Here. Yeah. Oh, everyone is different. 100%.
More goats eaten in the world than any other meat. So it's the most.
Yeah, because it's easier to get. Because they're dumb.
Chevron, I think they're called.
Chevron,
yeah, I think that's because,
and it can live anywhere.
That's it.
And it can live anywhere.
Right. Goat is chevron is what we call goat, and that's
chevron.
Right. I think it's chevron, as in CHEVORON, I suppose.
Chevron.
So I think it's the most most widely eaten, mammal. I think the most commonly eaten thing is some kind of fish, but certainly the goat meat is, and we in Australia we have boom and busts of goat industries that pop up and then they disappear again and things like that. But certainly, I mean, it's interesting, that you if you saw a goat, you might go, no one would say, well, don't shoot that one past, there's potential there type thing.
Well, the billies they do.
So, not even the 35-inch.
Potential there. I have passed up plenty of goats. But the reason I passed them up is not because of potential, is because I didn't want to fire a shot on an animal from that particular angle, and I didn't want to do that because it just kills it for the sake of killing it. So I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. I passed up billies for the sake of wanting to shoot 2 animals only and wanting to take nannies rather than stinky billies. And I saw a pretty good quality billy in Severn on my first day in on one trip, and I left it because it would have been an absolute cracker of a bow hunt trophy. Whereas for me, it was like I was 2 minutes into the hunt and he just walked in front of me. So I thought, well, 2 boys coming up tomorrow, come to join the camp. I'll leave it. Hopefully it'll be still around. Different reason, I guess. But I'd chase the female goats for meat, to John's point, any day.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, leave the billies alone if you're going for meat, in my view. But it's not dissimilar to hunting deer in the raw or the rut. The bucks or the stags, they piss in everywhere and rub themselves, and they stink.
They do stink.
They lose so much quality.
Stink. It's not. Billy stink is freaking rank.
Well, Billy stink is weird.
Yeah,
it is. It's a stink. You might poetically describe deer as a musky smell, but Billy is just a stinky.
Yeah. But if you're looking specifically for meat, you're not going to be hunting stags in the raw.
No,
then it's not the time to hunt them.
That's actually probably the worst. And in fact, as the war goes on, the meat quality tanks considerably.
100%. But you could still pick up a good quality stag at the beginning of the raw. It's going to taste fine.
Oh, I shot that 5.5, the one that you can see literally right there. There we go. This year, and the mute on that was beautiful. It was absolutely
how did
beautiful.
you cook it though? Because then this all comes down to cooking at the end. You could throw a shoulder in the oven, completely butcher it, but it could be off a stag or a hind. It wouldn't matter if you can't cook it. You're going to stuff it. Venison's not forgiving.
Well, that.
Yeah, I mean that one. I had to pack it out. I literally took the best cuts. I took the back leg, the back straps, and that was it. I regret doing that because it was actually such beautiful eating. But then I shot a stag in the raw 2 years before, and the meat was just really smelly and stinky, and it wasn't the best eating quality. And I took that whole carcass. So you really don't know what you're going to get. I think if you're hunting the raw or the rut, you're kind of not focused on meat. You're focused on the trophy first and the experience. The meat's a bonus if it's in good quality, but you've really got to assess that animal when you do it, when you take it.
And I mean, if you're hunting the raw, you also get in that weird situation. Whereas if you don't see the stag you want, you still want to get meat, then you make a decision on which one's not going to make it through the raw. And so last year, that's what I did with there was this. It's actually the head's in my front yard. Actually, it's one of my front yard ornaments. It was just this really ugly bush 3 head, and I went, "That's the dude." Mm-hmm. You're not making it till next year, buddy. And there's an interesting, there's a real quandary around that because, the flow-on effect of that is almost immeasurable, So that deer was shot, so those genes are now out of the pool. So what does that all mean? And the flow-on effects are, and since, I didn't take every scrap of animal, something ate that. And what ate that, and what happened from that? What was the byproduct of something eating that? What is the byproduct of all the stags that I didn't kill? So by taking out that one, you go, okay, you've removed that. And we often say that. Well, it's a cull stag. This is I think about this often. People say, kill that one. It's a cull stag. Okay, so what you're saying, I am removing that one from the gene pool. So that one's.
But there needs to be criteria to determine a cull
That's
stag.
right, or most definitely. But even if whatever the criteria is, if you think about it, like I've shot 10%, well, that means there's 90% of them that are still there. So what does that 10% have on that 90%? Does that by removing something, does that necessarily mean things will improve?
No.
Don't know.
Well, depends.
He's probably still put his genetics out there before you shot him. You've removed him from
maybe he
more.
has or he has. We don't know. That's right. So I think it's never so clear as just saying, don't shoot big ones, or what are they say?
Yeah.
Something about let them go, let them grow, and things like that. That's a great line. It's a good
line, but you need to analyze the genetics that are going on, because you might shoot something, a 3.3 that could never be more than a 3.3, and he might be a shitty head, but you could shoot a 3.3 that could become a 6.6.
And the whole herd management thing is such a great subject to talk about when you've got the ability to herd manage. We're talking about state forest hunting a lot here, and you don't get to manage that herd. You've got to assess what's in front of you on the day. You got another 50 hunters that run in behind you. Not to say that you should shoot everything that moves, because otherwise somebody else is going to do it for you. But the whole what I was just saying a second ago, shoot.
That's pretty much a reality, though. If you don't shoot it, somebody else will.
That's right.
Yeah,
and it's in state forest. That's pretty much what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
The only way you're going to get to see a stag multiple times is if you're well and truly off the beaten track in places that most people just don't want to go. If it's going to be one of those farm fringe stags that everyone stacks up along the fence over the year, he doesn't have high hopes of that guy being around next year. But to the genetic point, Mark, we were just saying, you take the cull out, he won't be spreading any more of his genetics. He may have offloaded some already. Sure, he may not have even been a cull. He may have damaged himself in antler growth, and he was up to cull stag. But next year it could be brilliant. Who knows? You don't really know the story behind it until, I guess, after you've shot it, and you can assess that nothing's broken and it really is just a munter. But on the other side of that, that whole let him go, let him grow statement, I think it's a great term as well. But that guy, if he's a pretty good head, and next year it'd be even better, chances are you're not going to see him next year. He's already offloaded his genetics. So taking him out as a slightly less mature animal because he's good enough for you for what you're looking for doesn't mean that his genetics aren't out there to help the gene pool, because he's probably bred.
Which is a really interesting point if you think about it, because his genetics don't reflect antler growth.
No.
His genetics aren't going to be better next year. If his antlers are better, it doesn't mean his genetics. No. So his genetics are good from day one,
Oh, there's other influences, though, like environmental factors.
And diet and all that kind of thing. So that's right.
Yes. But genetics are genetics.
Genetics are genetics. So I'm saying, well, I'm not going to shoot him because I just want him to keep breeding. Or you're saying, well, you know what? It's a relatively mature stag. It's a good-looking stag. It's probably bred already. The genetics are already in the pool. So, there's that question. I know, for instance, you made a good point about, if you don't shoot it, others will. There was in the Mary Valley, one year I belly crawled for about an hour and a half to get onto what looked like a 6.6. When I got within shooting range, I realised it was a 6.6, but it was broken. It split, and it was a broken 6.6. So I said, no, we'll leave it, let it go. It's a 6.6, but it's a broken 6.6, so I don't want to take it. It was said to me, good, sure, but it probably won't be next year, because if it goes anywhere near the road, it's going to get clipped. And never saw that deer again. And that's what happened. And some guy may have hunted it, and did a worthy hunt on it, or someone might have leaned out a car window and shot it under the lights. You don't know. And that was private land. So to think on public land that that thing's going to be there for you next year that's pretty wishful thinking. So I think, as the opportunity presents itself, you really got to think about, should I take this opportunity? And I couldn't point my finger at someone and say you shouldn't take that opportunity. In fact, I'd recommend you take that opportunity, because you learn from that opportunity. You learn from the process. Yeah. So next time you might go, well, no, I'm not going to shoot. That's great. You've come to that decision yourself rather than letting someone else, make that decision for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I went on this weekend with
when I was in the you go, Matt. You go.
I went on this weekend just past with other goals other than shooting deer. Lucky enough, my freezer's full. I don't really have a lot of room for it, but there were a couple of people that were coming along that were desperate to get some meat for Christmas. One hadn't shot a deer before in state forest. One had taken one in his life. It was a good opportunity to help out. And for me, so I was able to be selective. I did carry a rifle in case something came along and the other guys weren't being successful, and I was the only one to get a chance to get some meat into camp that I could share. Then I would have done it, but turns out I didn't have to. But on one of those days, this exact question popped up. In that I was in the bush with the other two guys. I was looking, so I had Missy with me, the indicating dog, and I said to the guys, I'm just going to go and do a loop up around here and see if I can get any wind. And they stayed back. It just happened to be over a carcass that one of them had shot the day before. Oh no, that morning. He took us into the area just to show us the area and see what was going on in there. So we located where he shot that animal, and he recounted us saw it, which was pretty cool. And I just said, look, just hang out here. I'm going to zip up here, 25, 30 meters, and I'm just going to see what else I can catch on the wind. And as I did that, right in front of me, just over a ridge, Missy just pointed hard out down the hill, and within probably 40 meters of me, there's a beautiful red hind standing there. But now, for whatever reason, I decided I wasn't going to carry my rifle that day. So I wasn't in the position to shoot. So here I am, I've turned around to face the other guys who are fart-arsing around, having a good time and a chatting or whatever. And I was whistling as loud as I could. And every time I whistled, I turned around and the deer hadn't noticed. The wind was perfect. And I'm whistling and I'm waving, like, come on, come on. And I just couldn't get their attention. I turn around and there's this beautiful red stag walking up behind this doe. And I just thought, oh, this hind. I just thought, oh, how awesome is this guy? So he was in very soft velvet, almost rubbery, cartoon style rubbery, but he had some very nice things going on that headgear. And again, I don't think I would have shot it because I'm similar to Mark. I'm not really into shooting, soft velvet stags, because you can't mount that head. That velvet in that state is going to just rot off. You can't even inject that stuff and try and preserve it. It doesn't work. So along with that stag, when I turned around and saw the stag, there were three other hinds. So there were 4 hinds and a stag. So there's a question, we'll talk about this one in a minute, but I could not get their attention for all money. And then finally I did, and I turned around. I had to yell at one of them, like as quietly as I could yell, got his attention. And I turned around and they wandered off quietly. Now, to the point that we've been talking about before, I've been selecting an animal. I would never have shot that deer for 2 reasons. One I just spoke about, and the other one, there were 4 other deer there that were perfectly good meat deer, and there was no need for me to go and shoot that stag for meat. So I think the further on you get in your hunting life and the more animals you've taken, the more selective you allow yourself to be. But as a new hunter, again, still the one that presents the best shot at the time would have been the one that probably fell over if you were the person standing in my shoes at that point. So so yeah, really cool experience. I've never in my life seen a red stag in that antler growth state. Man, it looked cool. It looked really cool. So yeah, fun experience.
And I guess that goes back to what we spoke on a previous podcast, was there seems to be a lot more reds in Nundle.
Yes, it does. It's exciting. Very exciting. It could be two trips going there, March.
Where are they coming from?
Yeah. Yeah, where are they? Well, there's always been reds there. I think one of the very first hunts I went on, one of the other guys shot a red, not far from Ponderosa. But they've definitely spread out. Lots of them are hanging rock. the top end of Nundle, Tuggelo's always had them. So yeah, they are thickening up. But my question about that,
they're definitely more prevalent.
Yeah, and almost every other message that we get about successes in Nundle seems to be a red. It's a red and a fallow. There's a red and a fallow. There's a high percentage for sure. So my question about that, lots of theories about what stags do once they drop their antlers and go into regrowth mode. This guy was with 4 hinds, and a lot of people will say that those stags will disappear up into the mountains and live a fairly solitary life while they're growing out those antlers. But he had four hinds with him. I just thought that was quite interesting. What say you about that?
So my view on that is, I wouldn't have expected the stag now to be holding hinds from my experience. I think usually the stags are mobbing up together, more bachelor herds.
Not after
a bit early for the stags to be rounding up the hinds. But I think Nundle's just a bit different. I don't think the stags and the reds in there are exhibiting normal behavior. I think it's a new environment for them. I know you say they've been there, but I think they've been few and far between, and I think they're just sticking together is what I think. I think it's not your typical behavior, but they're just hanging around. That's my view on it.
I think they're coming from the east, heading west, and I think the rain in the last few years of conditions have allowed them to travel. I remember when we were in Narrabri in 2018, but right in the middle of the dry, and we were talking to one of the locals in Narrabri, and he said one of the expectations was when this drought breaks, the deer will turn up in Pilliga. He said basically the dry is keeping them away. Then they can't move, they can't migrate, because they need to migrate from water and food sources. So my feeling is they're coming from the east. So that that's where I think they're coming from. I think they were always there. I just think they're coming in bigger numbers, and I think also the fact that there's been so many good years, they've bred up, and probably they don't. Breeding's an interesting thing. So if there's more breeding animals, you're going to get more animals. If the conditions are good, more animals are going to survive. So that means there's more animals, and then, so on and so forth. So I think we're seeing that. And I wonder if in a couple of years, when it's really dry again, when we don't start, we see less reds, but I can't answer that. Won't know until that happens. In terms of the behaviour, my feeling is it's very difficult to judge animal behaviour by looking at one particular circumstance. I'm pretty sure I've seen fallow and red together. Most people say that's wrong. They don't do that. Pretty sure one of them was a red.
I've seen that.
Could be wrong. But I couldn't say that fallow and red travel together, because I think I've saw a red with some fallow. Okay, that's about as best I could. So it's hard to say why that stag was with those hinds. It's and I think you can only kind of fall back onto what what the prevailing wisdom is until the prevailing wisdom is proven otherwise. That's the whole thing. That's how we learn. So I don't know why that stag was there. It might have just been coincidence. It might have been
at that moment.
They might have all been feeding on there might have been 50 metres from there may have been this beautiful patch of clover, and they're just there. And so when you saw them, they were just there together. Or it might have been that they are specifically together. I can't really tell. And the more I thought about it, because Ian kind of put this question to me a couple of days ago, the more I thought about it, I thought, I can't give you an answer because it's just not enough data.
No, there isn't.
So I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. Yeah. I don't disregard that it happened. I don't think. I mean, I've seen certain animal behaviour that doesn't make sense, but that's only because and think about it, I don't know. I'm not a deer biologist. I don't know that much about them. I know I don't understand why 2 years ago there was a deer next to my truck when I walked up to it. I can't tell you, but it was, and I shot it. But so I don't know. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a reason. Don't know.
Cool. I have a slightly different theory that I'll throw out there, and I think I mentioned this to Mark, slightly different to yours, Jono. I agree that they bachelor up after the rut and the raw. After the raw, both breeds will do it. But reds, they'll bachelor up until they drop their heads, and then they disappear. They don't stay mobbed up after they go into antler regrowth, because they end up donking each other's bloody antler growth, and they cause issues in growth. So the theory that I've read and listened to is that that stag goes back to his where he was born, to his birth mother and siblings, and that's where he hangs out. He basically hangs out in that location until he's grown antlers, and then he goes on the march back to wherever the harem is that he's going to round up for the rut or the raw. And that just stops them fighting. Also, him moving away from that family unit stops into breeding. It's just nature's way of handling that. And I feel like I've heard that a couple of times and read it. Whether there's truth to it, again, I'm not the biologist either, but I think it's a fairly cool theory that's the behaviour of red stags. And he was back with his sibling unit in the area that he was born some years ago. That's just the way that I understood it, and the way I explained it to what I knew anyway, to the guys that were in the camp. So it helped me understand that theory a bit more. But regardless of what the right answer is, very, very cool to see it. I mean, even I probably had 30 to 45 seconds of good solid staring at this magnificent animal in between turning around and yelling obscenities at the two fellas behind me. One of them was making elk fawn calls. He bought an elk caller from AP. He had this elk caller, and he was making little fawn noises with it, and it was actually really good. I enjoyed using those
type things.
Little, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Apparently, it's been known to attract does and hinds, so it was worth a shot. Yeah, that was cool. That was a good experience.
Worth trying.
I mean, I'm certainly noticed, that kind of intergenerational behaviour in other. I mean, like generally, like if you hunt goats, you'll depending on the time of the cycle, of course, but you'll often see like a nanny, and they might have one or two, or sometimes three, but generally one or two real little kids. Very small goats, and then there'll be like a juvenile, which I think is like the last breeding cycle's goat. So there's like there'll be a generational gap there within that family unit, and you can, I suppose, you can assume that at least one, if not two, of the other juvenile siblings have died. They didn't make it, so there's one sibling that's made it, and it's with its mother, and then you've got these other newborns that are with their mother too, and when they breed with the billies and the different behaviour, when that you get that you get them in big mobs, when they start to really mob up, you'll see a whole kind of range of generations within those mobs of the matriarchal mob, the ones that are usually run by a dominant female. But when you look at the billies, they're nearly all exactly the same. So, and I thought, well, if that's the billy mob, is there like another billy mob out there that's bigger billies, or do they get to a certain stage and they don't mob up anymore? They kind of go their own way. So it's interesting. I mean, it's all animal behaviour, and you only, other than study and know about these things, from a professional point of view, it's all observational. But I mean, last time I saw a billy mob, they were like, they're carbon copies of each other. There wasn't a difference in horns amongst them that you could tell. And I remember I saw a billy mob once, and they all almost had exactly the same colour scheme, and they had this really weird antler, horn shape, where it was that ones where they go straight up.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, all of them had this horn structure. And they were all pretty much the same. But there's too many of them to be a single family, and there was like about 20 of them.
But the same billy could have covered how many nannies?
Yeah, but they would have all had to been born at the same time because they were all about the same size. So that would have been one very prolific billy. We want to find that bloke because he knew what he was doing. This is so they were like all the bachelor males were all the same age or same size within reason, but they were all the very similar colour scheme, and all had this very, very distinctive horn growth. So you thought, how did that happen? Was there, surely that can't be one billy. Is that, and how did that happen within that, very short period of time that they're all born at very similar age, similar time? So I think it's interesting to, I love doing this. I love speculating about why animals do what they do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You were going to say something, Jono?
Yeah, one of the
I was, and this was a while ago, I was going to say when we were talking about shooting young deer, if you've got a hind or a doe with dependent young, when I was trained in the UK as part of my deer course, we were always told to shoot the dependent young first, that you're not orphaning it. And obviously that's what we were taught was if you shoot the doe or the hind first, there's the potential that the young one will run off. It will probably stay close to its mother, but we were always told to shoot the dependent young first, because if something happens, then it's not going to be orphaned.
Yeah,
from an ethical point of view, I think that's pretty important.
Well, I think isn't that what they do in Scandinavian countries with the moose? There was something, I think it was Gemma, one of them was telling us that it's okay to actually shoot. They'd prefer that if a moose come up, you drop the young one because it's dead,
so it doesn't get
food.
Orphaned.
That's it. Yep. It's done. The mother will rebreed probably. There'll be another one.
Yeah.
But if
you
you
want to
shoot
avoid
the mother,
orphaning,
you've got this problem. You've got this secondary problem of now you've got potentially 2 dead moose. One we're not going to recover. So that's I think that makes a lot of sense.
But then in the UK, they do have game seasons. Deer are classed as game.
Yeah.
And you can't shoot them in specific breeding season, especially when they're dropping. So it is slightly different to here. If you're shooting deer now, especially hinds or does, you need to accept that there's potential that there's a fawn. Not every hind or doe is going to have a fawn that could be dry, but you need to accept that there might be, and that needs to play into, if you're an ethical hunter, whether you're actually prepared to potentially orphan. Yeah, there was a motorbike going past
very quickly,
and that's something you need to accept. Yeah,
accept that you might, or accept that you should.
So, I think it's up to the individual. For me, I'm not gonna shoot a doe or a hind now because I think there's a high expectation that she will have a fawn. I will shoot one, and I did a cull a few weeks ago where the expectation was that they were all pregnant, and that was, what we were there for was to remove deer off the landscape. It was a cattle property, and the farmer didn't want deer on because at the time we were experiencing some really dry conditions, and he wanted deer removed. So by shooting a hind or a doe, you've got a high chance of actually taking off 2 off the landscape because you're expecting it to be pregnant. But once it's actually dropped, I think from an ethics point of view, me personally, I'm not going to shoot. I'll wait it out until that fawn's a few months old and it can actually potentially survive on its own. That's my ethical point of view. I know in a Queensland perspective, with deer being classed as feral pests, we're supposed to shoot them, and if we shoot the mother now, we'll probably kill that fawn. But for me, it's not a very nice way for the fawn to die. I don't like it. That's just my ethical perspective. Hence why I don't hunt does or hinds now.
Well, I stop. I don't generally hunt deer now because it's too hot.
Well, that plays into it, but
in the fact that I don't want the meat prep becomes an issue now.
Well,
end of January, going back to that's when you start culling. Yeah, well, end of January you can start culling stags because they're getting into hard velvet, hard antler, and you can then see, they've grown significantly. That you can actually tell whether it's potentially a cull or not. So I think end of January start shooting cull stags or stags, but I'm certainly not going to shoot does or hinds in December, Jan.
Right.
So here's an interesting one. What does moon phase have on the soil?
What is what?
What does moon phase have on the influence of deer or game animals?
Well,
and the reason I say this is because go ahead. Sure.
My experience is that when the moon is full, bright, the deer are less likely to come out of cover.
No, I don't mean so. Okay, so that's at night time moon phase. But what about if it's just the full moon phase? What effect do you think that does it have on the animal throughout the day as well as into the evening? So the full moon, just because the full moon just doesn't appear at night. It's a full moon phase.
Well, my feeling on that is, if it's a full moon at night, the deer are going to be out feeding later at night because they have better visibility. They can see whether there's any predators coming. They're going to feed more at night, and they're potentially not going to be active at first light when we're generally out hunting them. They could potentially by that point be, bedded up, ruminating, chewing the cud. That's my view on it. They're feeding more at night when because they can see predators coming. They get better visibility.
Really interesting.
I think during the day, no. Yeah, I don't think during the day does it have a specific impact. No, but I think because the night is impact, it has a follow-on into the day.
Okay. The reason I ask is that boar that I picked up on the trail camera, that particular trail camera that picked up that boar twice, actually gives you the moon phase in the data below. And both times it picked it up, it was a full moon phase. It's in the daytime, but it was a full moon phase. And so I'm thinking, okay, what's going on there?
Was it a phase apart, or was it just two?
Those cameras up there for 7 weeks. They're up there.
Just complete, but therefore they might come out after midnight.
Well, I know
maybe the muntjacks with the fangs, but you just don't. I just don't see deer out when you're spotlighting for meat in full moon phase. They're just not there. It's in my diary. Don't see them.
Well, I mean, that exists. That argument exists in fishing. Some people think that fish are more active in the full moon phase. Some people think the fish are less active in the full moon phase. They think they're more active because of greater tidal movement. Some people say, yeah, but more light, so they're more wary of predators, so they are less active. So again, I don't know, but I did notice that on that one particular trail cam that picked up the pig a couple of times over a 7-week period. Both times it picked up the pig was the little in the bottom corner was a little picture of the full moon, and I checked the date. And it was. So it was a. So I'm wondering what's going on.
We need an animal behaviouralist to come and join us to talk to us about this.
We do.
Yeah.
That would be cool. I'd like to understand.
Because it wasn't that pig wasn't picked up at night. It was in the afternoon, but it was moving.
It was only on a full moon.
It only seemed to moving. Well, I only moved past that camera on a full moon. Full moon phase.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Was. Strange enough, that pig was on camera about 100 metres, actually probably less in direct line of sight, but let's say 100 metres, and 4 years apart from the last big boar I took, because the last big boar I took was almost there.
That monster one.
Yeah, and that was just below where that pig was, and that big monster was going in that direction that pig on the camera was heading. So yeah, very strange. They're obviously a resident boar. I'm pretty sure I know where it's coming from. It's coming from a dam, but I don't know where it's going, and I don't know why it's only doing it on a full moon. but very close to where I shot one 4 years ago.
Well, know where you're going to be in next full moon, hanging out by your camera.
Well, I'm thinking, I'm going to try and get up there on a full moon and get in there in the afternoon, and try and get in position. The wind is crap this time of year because it's prevailingly easterly, so it really cuts down your opportunity. Unfortunately, that place where that pig is not a good place for an easterly. Well, it's great for the pig, not for you. It's a really crappy place for an easterly, and prevailing easterlies. But yeah, so interesting to see. I've got the camera back up there. I didn't move the camera. I adjusted it slightly, but I kept it there because I wanted to see what was if it came back again. So I took the memory card out. So interesting. Though strange enough, the other places where I thought there was pigs for sure, there was no pigs. Which, again, it's quite interesting. You think, oh yeah, this is it. This is where they've been. Not a skerrick. Where I didn't think, where I didn't consider seeing one, that's where they're at. So.
Much deer sign?
Only a little bit, and all nocturnal. I set up two trail cams on quite open ground because I saw lots of deer sign on that open ground. But open ground's a challenge with the trail camera. And got only a very little bit of deer sign on one of the trail cams. One of the had no deer sign at all, and it was all nocturnal. And it was a spiker. And I think it was the same spiker. I think it was just bothering in that area over a few nights.
New question for you.
So I saw deer sign in other locations, but not that. So I've moved the cameras kind of towards the east of the block. See if I can try and bracket where the deer are. Yes, mate.
Is there an animal that runs around in the bush that hoovers up and eats deer poo? Something follows around the deer in the state forest and eats all their poo. I'm convinced of this because I find, all the sign in the world, footprints, habitat, everything, and no poo. What eats their poo? There's something going on here.
I've never heard that one before.
Well,
dung beetles.
But there's not. Anyway,
well,
I just thought I'd ask that.
I don't. So the only thing that I really regard as fresh is turd.
Is what?
Because you can see a print and it could be turd is what I regard as fresh sign.
I don't think I saw any.
Sign. So if there's a print there, you kind of go, yeah, okay. But generally, that stuff, you can. That's the sign of fresh stuff. So, if there's no turd, I would assume that there's no real fresh sign going through there because it's it's the thing that breaks down the quickest.
We did the whole thing under be seen, lost in the layers of undergrowth.
Apparently, dog.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. Jono's on the research
dogs
page.
will eat deer poo.
Yeah, but I mean that's a lot of dogs chomp on a lot of dogs.
Yeah, but if dogs will eat it, there must be other things that eat it.
Dogs are poo eaters. That's why whenever I see people kissing their dogs,
maybe there's something too that's made them a little in Nundle. We saw, I think, collectively about 6 or 7 red bellies, so they were very active in the area. But we got one animal on the ground about 8 a.m. Now we got one animal on the ground about 5 p.m. Now the days got up to 38 to 39. The nights didn't get that cool. They probably got down to, I don't know, low 20s, I guess. And it does pose an issue in Nundle, especially in Nundle and other hot places around preserving meat. I've never seen so many bloody flies in Nundle in my life. Usually it's cold, there's no flies. There were thousands and thousands of blowflies. As soon as you had any scrap of blood anywhere, you were attacked by flies and you were attacked by leeches. They just came from everywhere. I thought the leeches would have been just a wet thing, but no, they're everywhere. So it was a bit of a challenge. So my tips for those that are considering, there's quite a few people listening at the moment that have got trips next week, the trips the week after, there's trips the week after that, lots of people heading that way. Here's my 2 observations and tips for you if you shoot deer while you're there. So I'll start with the morning. My opinion is that if you shoot an animal in the morning, then you should be prepared to take the standard butcher's cuts and get the hell out of there as fast as you can. And I mean, whip the backs off, whip the fronts off, take the back straps, do it the gutless method, forget about everything else, get that stuff into your pack and protect it from the flies, and get it on ice. And leave it on ice until the flies go away after dark. Then get them back out again and do the strip down of the skin and breaking the meat up. That would be my recommendation. Otherwise, you're just going to lose meat to maggots. They're just going to blow on it. Right? There's nothing you can do about it. So that's my recommendation for a morning shot, because it's only going to get warmer. Takes most people an hour to take an animal once they've shot it and have it prepped and packed out. Some people take longer, some a bit less, but there's an hour by the time you muck around and take your photos and bits and pieces and get ready to go, right? Now, if you're doing the same thing but in the evening, so we carried this one out completely whole, so you could do exactly what I've just said and do it, in the evening. But in the evening, because it was cooling down a lot faster, we had the opportunity to take the whole animal out. We were expecting to do that, so we had a doona cover to wrap the animal in, and we had game bags and other bits and pieces, but we just used the single doona cover, and we were able to gut that thing out, move the carcass away from the gut pile and left the gut pile to the flies, and there were just thousands of flies that showed up, and then just get that thing into your game bag or doona cover as it was, and we're able to pack it out to the car. Once we got back to camp, we hung that thing in the tree, made sure no flies could get in around it, but because all you've done is gut it, you've still got skin on all the meat areas other than the tenderloins on the inside. There's no way the flies can get to the meat. They might get into the cavity. If you're unlucky, they might get into the cavity, but you're not eating much that's in there anyway. You could strip the tenderloins out if they're in good condition well before you hang it up if you want to, but there's an opportunity there to hang it up and then make more of the carcass than just take the good old hunter's cuts off, right? So we did that. We hung it for an hour and a half in the cooling down temperatures, and then butchered it up once the flies had buggered off. And then we only had the mosquitoes to deal with, so it was easy. Anyway, my tips for summer anyway, from what we've just been through.
Yeah, I agree with the morning. I tend to, if I'm going to take meat this time of year, I'll take it in the morning, and I won't be too fast. I'll be just taking hindquarters, forequarters, and backstraps, and keeping the skin on it, getting it in a game bag because I can. By the time I carry it back to camp or the car or wherever I parked up, it'll have some chance to cool down a little bit, and generally I'll probably drop it in an esky and then put it into the car fridge, and won't even touch it again until I get home and it's hardened up and all that kind of stuff. That's it. Get it. And I started doing this esky fridge method because what I found was it would melt the ice in the esky. In this time of year, the heat still retained in the meat in the carcass, or the parts of the carcass was enough to melt ice. Yep. So it was ice, then car fridge. And if I put it straight in the car fridge, you'd watch the temperature go into car fridge, go up to the 20s. It punch it right up. The amount of heat that was retained in that carcass was phenomenal. So yeah.
Yeah,
I
certainly
then into so.
We certainly
that might be, if you don't have a cartridge, it might be have two kind of, maybe even two eskies. Put it in one and then put it in the second one once it's cooled right off, because you just could not get rid of the heat.
So ours was dumped in the esky, and the ice melted exactly like you said. But the next day we did the 35-kilometre run to Nundle to do a restock, and it preserves it. You don't always have that opportunity, but in that case, again,
that's right. You start up that, and that's right.
Yeah, we were right up the top. So sorry, Johnny.
I was going to say, what I also do is I carry block ice. I don't use the normal servo ice. I make block ice because it lasts a lot longer. So I actually get big 10-litre. I've got those 10-litre Coles water jugs that you can buy.
Oh, yeah.
That I've actually used the water, refill those, and then I chuck them in the deep freeze like a week before I go because they're big 10 kilo block ice. And then I use 3 or 4 of those in the esky, and then I top that up with normal standard servo ice, and then I can drain that water out. But that block ice will last a week.
I was doing similar with 2-litre milk bottles.
Yeah, I just use the 10 litres. I find they last a lot longer, and they stack nicely. They've got a handle on them, and you can just stack them in your esky, and they last a lot longer.
Right. Well, do you put salt in them?
Yeah,
block. You could do a slurry, but I generally just fill them with water. Slurry is supposed to be better. It's supposed to hold temperature.
It's supposed to last longer. Yeah.
Supposedly will last longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I do. I use block ice. I mean, look how well it works up at Fraser.
Yeah. We won't go into that. So another cool thing happened while we were there, right? So this is an interesting one. I told Mark about this, but Jono, you haven't heard it yet. So Dave came out, and we came out with me, and we shot a yearling. Would have been a yearling hind, yearling doe, fellow, and we brought it back and just followed that process that I just spoke about, and then we dropped the carcass over the back of this log pile behind camp, and probably should have taken it a little bit further because the wind changed on us, and after a couple of sunny days, it was a little bit smelly. But anyway, the morning of the Sunday, I think it was Sunday, maybe it was Saturday. The morning of anyway, one of the mornings we went out there, and the carcass everything was still there, and we went off hunting and came back, and Dave and I got back first, and Derek got back a little bit after us. And he said, "Oh, it was really interesting. I found a deer carcass about 1 kilometre from camp." And then about 400 metres down further, he found a leg, a front leg of a deer. Well, we looked at the carcass photos, and it had a reciprocating saw cut off the neck and a reciprocating saw cutting off above the pelvis. So it wasn't a natural death. It was a Dave sliced to bits deer carcass. So during the day while we were out hunting, we suspect wild dog or dogs have come in and taken the entire carcass on the way back to the den, and and Derek has disturbed those animals somewhere along his hunt, and they've dropped the carcass and run off, taking the front leg that was all jellied from being shot, or just the pressure, about 300 or 400 meters further down the track that he bumped into a little bit. That is a hell of a long way to be dragging a deer carcass. And actually bump into it again.
That's pretty cool, then.
Well, we didn't know it was ours. We were just like, "Oh, that's really interesting. Oh, that's pretty new." And then we started looking at the finer details, and you'll see in the video later on, I showed Dave how to skin off the rib flap to roll up for a rolled roast. We could only do it on one side because the other side was all messy. So in the photo that Derek took, there was one side that was messy and one side that was stripped off. So 100% it was the right one. So yeah, just cool that we had these visitors during the day to come and raid it.
Very cool.
There wasn't a scrap of the gut pile left. And we're only talking a few hours.
Yeah, well, I find that birds take care of all that, the gut pile too. I set a camera on a carcass up in Brisbane Valley, and it was most of the in fact the birds eventually moved the carcass when they they didn't move it any great distances, but you could see it on the camera. It was moving from the birds and stuff like that. They really got into the gut pile. I remember once we were hunting for pigs, and we spotted this lump on the ground and looked at it and went, "Oh, it's a cow. It's down." And it looked dead, even at distance. And we were kind of going, "It's dead," but then you could see it was moving. You were kind of going, "What's going on up here?" So we proceeded to come ever closer, and when we got within a fairly close range, this pig appeared from the inside of this cow.
No, nice.
It literally eaten its way in. It was eating its way around the inside of this cow. Right. So this thing, it was just going chomp, 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 chomp. So it doesn't surprise me that dogs, probably dogs, would just grab a deer carcass and run with it and try and take it to a especially one that's all smashed up and broken. So there's no work for them. It's like ice cream. You've done all the hard work from, so take it back to either their den or just to take it away. That it's a place that was safer. They felt safer for them to eat it.
Clearly, that 1080 program worked very well then.
Well, if you have a look, well, not that we're going to give away where we were, and one of the locations that we were, it wasn't a 1080 drop zone. There's a clue.
It was or it wasn't?
It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
And you know that they're reasonably accurate. They're not airdropped.
Yeah, they put the little flag up.
Yeah, they're properly done. They're not just carpet bombed.
Yeah.
So they're able to tell you exactly.
I remember in Pilliga, right up there in the north end of Pilliga, where it goes back in the national park, along the fence line, there was all the little flags that they put in that there's a bait around. Yep.
I relied on that because I had my dog with me, and I had her off leash. Not that she picked the baits up. She's not that. She doesn't just go and scavenge for food, so I'm pretty lucky there. But it's always a concern. Probably one of the other tips I'll give to people that are going there over the next few weeks, if you are going, is the observations outside of the normal early morning and last light time frames for spotting deer. I think it's reasonably well known, but certainly we observed it that sort of around that 3 o'clock period, the deer seem to get up, have a chew, have a water, and bed back down again. So there was a bit of activity around that time. So it's worth being out there for that, even though it's going to be stinking hot, and then just having a relax for a couple of hours while you wait for that sort of magic hour to come by. It's a bit of a tip that we've picked up. So that was good.
I mean, like, again, about behaviour, after hunting goats for a number of years, Severn actually, because we hunted Severn, I got 8-9 years in a row. We ended up saying goats keep bankers hours, you know.
Yeah, it's great.
They get up before 9 and they go to bed at 3 type thing, you know. So there's, let's go wide.
Yeah, I can tell you that after the guys rolled into camp at 11:30 at night, and we stayed up for a couple of hours having a yarn. I got 3 hours sleep before the 4:30 alarm went off. Summer hunting is harder for the heat and the long daylight hours. You get way less sleep. But it's part of the deal. I've got a couple of gear updates from the trip, if you're interested.
Oh, cool. Cool.
I'll start with these, because you've got them already. Jono, you asked when I talked about
the LRFs.
So these are the Steiner Predator LRFs. You asked what their weight was like. They are on the slightly heavy side, but I didn't really notice it too much until after about the second hour of the sit, when I started getting a bit. I'll just put the binos over here for a while. I think I've had enough glassing for now. But I have ended up just resting them on the tripod, just using them that way. So yes, there's a bit more weight in them than my other ones, but the quality of them is so much nicer. It's really good, and probably one of the main things that I really enjoyed, even over top of the range finding capabilities, is the little eye caps. It makes them so comfortable to look through for long periods of time. You're not getting all that silent light. So I was really impressed with those. If you're looking for binos, check them out. They're pretty cool. That's as much as I'm going to say on that one. I was using the AP13 InfiRay thermal. This is their entry-level thermal. It looks like just about every thermal vendor out there has a thermal that looks like this shape. It's that, traditional monocular shape. They all seem to have one. I don't know if they're all rebadged or not. But Dave had one of these from a couple of years ago that he paid quite a lot more than this one's worth. And he compared both of these, and we both compared them, eye to eye. And he was quite impressed with the quality and sharpness of the image out of the InfiRay product. I think Hikmoko, is that the other brand?
Yep, Hikmoko.
Hikmoko, yeah. So he had a Hikmoko one, which was, I think he probably said he paid 3 times more than what this one's worth. So it's 2-3 generations old, mind you. Even the one generation behind this one that we tried last year, this is significantly better. What I can say about this, it's not as good as the $4,000 one that I've also got that I'm looking at. But as far as state forest hunting goes, your range is quite short. You're only talking about 150 to 200 max in almost everywhere that you go in these state forests. And this is perfect for that. It does a great job out to that distance.
Yeah.
And it was really good just to see the birds, the roos, the everything that was going around there while we're sitting around waiting. So value for money. I think I saw online they're about $800 for an entry-level one. I think it's worth a look. It's a good size to put in my
totally agree.
Yeah.
There's been we're getting that wonderful uptick from technology where it gets better and cheaper. Every time the generations come out, it gets better and cheaper. And I know because the Burris, the V2 compared to the V1 is remarkably, remarkable improvement. So you're getting, and again, certainly there is a time and a place for a $23,000 thermal.
Yeah.
But having a monocular like that can make your hunting, again, it's kind of your ability to scout and observe open ground and determine if there's is or isn't anything in front of you, which is really it's just as important. It's pretty hard to go past those kind of entry-level style monoculars. They just come in so handy.
Yeah.
I mean, I carry that Burris all the time for that reason.
Yeah.
Other thing about the LRFs, how did you find the eye relief in terms of using them over a period of time? Did you get eye strain?
No, not a bit. No, but I
reckon it's those eye caps.
Yeah, I think it's the eye caps. The eye caps, they just block out all of that unnecessary light, and your eye is not trying to focus in weird places. I noticed. It's funny. I was just going to say this is how much of a gearhead I am. My other binos I thought were 8s, not 10s, but they're actually 10s. So it seems that I've been using 10 power ones for quite some time anyway. I just assumed they were smaller power because these are such, quite a lot larger, but that's purely because they've got the rangefinder built in, so they're a longer binocular. But the ones that I have been using are very similar, so no, I was quite used to it. In fact, I think I got probably less eye strain because the clarity was so much nicer. Again, if I probably took the other ones out and I wiped the blood and grit and shit off the lenses, they would probably be pretty good too. But I haven't. So, but no, they're good. I really enjoyed using them.
Yeah.
Last piece.
Yeah, I found that with the Steiners that I reckon it does help with eye strain or limits eye strain over a period of time because you're not getting competing light.
Yeah. I think you're
in
bang
your
on.
eyes.
Yep. Headphone update. We all remember the headphones.
How did they go?
Well, Matt Clark, pretty well, to be fair. So I wasn't using Bluetooth music while I was in the park, so that didn't matter. I wore them all day, for every day, ready to go, ready to shoot, or ready to be around someone that was shooting. The earbuds are comfortable. I didn't feel like I was getting sore ears like you do when you wear some headphones all the time. So in terms of comfort goes, they've got quite a range of earbuds that you can pick and choose from. So you're able to get a really good fit. Like I said, they were comfortable all day. I used when I was on the sit spots, I turned on the noise enhancing, and you could just hear so much. It was really nice just to get that, like all the stuff that you probably couldn't hear before was just coming through loud and clear. You could hear little things, you could hear leaves dropping, you could hear all sorts of things. So it was kind of cool to use them. So I rate them as far as hearing protection and noise enhancing goes, and noise cancelling goes. So that's all. Then that's all you want out of a set of hunting plugs, I guess. The funny thing was, I'm going to have to boil the earbuds out, but I gave them to Dave. I let Dave use them. If you met Dave, seems like he's gone deaf. So when you're sitting on a stand together and you're like, and he's like, whoa, see that? Can't hear you.
Yeah.
I'd buy them again now. I won't be sending them back.
That's good. Cool. Good to know.
And what's the brand? The Axel, is that right?
They're Axel. Yeah, I should remember what they're called, but you'll go onto the Axel website and you'll see the headphone earbuds that look like this. For those listening,
Yeah.
they're earbuds with a hook over the ear, and they've got controls for Bluetooth on one side and noise enhancing and cancelling on the other. They're on a cord that clips to the back of your collar, which stops you from losing them. So yeah, no, they're good. Quite like them.
All right, John, anything from you?
No, I think I'm pretty good. I think we've covered. It's been a good chat.
We have. Well, yeah, yep. I'm about done. What about you, Ian?
I think I'm done. There's heaps I could talk about the trip, but it'll come up. It'll come up in other sideline conversations, no doubt.
Okay, let's wrap it up, put a bow on it, stick it on the tree, see if someone picks it up for Christmas.
Very good.
What is that time of the year?
It is.
Cool. Well, thanks, gents.
All right, mate.
Okay, guys.
Catches.
See you guys.